Welcome everybody to the 2020-2021 Parent Athlete OHSAA Fall Sports Meeting. We're looking forward to the upcoming season, especially since we finally have gotten the okay from the OHSAA and the governor and the Ohio Health Department to proceed. So in the meeting, we're going to follow this following agenda. We will hear from Mrs. Angela Smith, our superintendent of schools, then from our athletic director, John Dragas. I will come back and talk to you about the pay to participate guidelines, eligibility guidelines, as well as we'll hear from Mr. Tom Brady, the principal at the middle school for the middle school athletes. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Angela Smith, superintendent of the Madison Local Schools.
Hi, I'm Angela Smith, superintendent of the Madison Local Schools. And as you know, it's been a long summer. We've been waiting days for the announcement that our kids can have a season. And I'm happy to announce today that we have got a plan in place so that our students can safely play in interscholastic sports this fall. Our football team is ready under our new coach, Mike Gilligan, our girls soccer with returning coach Chad Butler, and our boys soccer with Julio Gutierrez, and our volleyball coach under the direction of Leslie Smith. All these teams are ready to go. Our cross-country team with Chrissy Chandler and Jeremy Verdi, they're ready to run their hearts out for Madison. Our tennis team with Dave Nagan and Keith Brainerd, they've already played a couple games under their belt. Pat Moran with the boys golf, and Nick Guston with boys golf as well, and BJ Tittman with girls golf. They're all ready. They're anxious. They want to share their love of the game with everyone. So in order to do that, Mr. Fisher and Mr. Dragas are going to present to you the rules and regulations to do this safely, not only as athletes, coaches, but also as fans.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Now at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to John Dragas, our athletic director, who will cover some various items.
Hello, everyone. For my portion of the meeting and information, I'm going to show examples right off of the website that you can find all the information that you need for high school athletics this fall. I am at madisonschools.net. If you scroll down the page, you can see under the quick links we have athletics. Clicking on athletics, right in the center column here is where you will find all the schedules. Obviously, schedules are going to change quite a bit this fall. I'm going to click on football. It's inaccurate right now, except for the first game or the first two, simply because we need to change those. As things change, though, as you can see, all of the games show up here, including if you click on Geneva, which is our first game. They have driving directions right off of the website. So as far as going to Spire, where Geneva plays, there's your driving directions so that you can find the away venues. Every school does not always play at their school. For example, Geneva plays at Spire. So make sure that you are aware that that's how that feature works right off of going from the schedule page. I'm going to see if I can back out of this, which I probably, yes, I can. Back at the Madison home screen, you'll also see that we have a form section where you can find the physical form. If you click on this, there's three little lines here. You click on that and you'll have access to the physical form, which you may need. It also includes Lindsays Law and Concussions sign waiver sheets, so that will all be part of that as well. If you can't fill out your form online, we do have hard copies still here, but we'd like you to fill out your forms online. Some of the other forms that are here is if you would like to have transportation in a private vehicle other than your mom or your dad, your parents, you have to have a form filled out and approved by Mr. Fisher prior to the event. So we have an away event for volleyball at Mayfield, and a student wants to go home with another student. This form has to be filled out prior to just getting in a car and going home. We will allow fans to go home and players after games to try to keep social distancing easier for visiting gyms and stadiums. But you have to make sure this form is filled out if you're going to ride with another person. The other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick was with forms. what I'm going to do for you is if you go to Infinite Campus and you log on as a parent, I will log in as a parent. I just want to make sure that everyone can see exactly where you have to go in order to fill out all of the forms online. So when you do log in, you can see that the word more down here in the left column. You click on more, and now as you go down to the bottom, you can see it says EMA and athletics. It's your last choice. If you click here, you can see that this is where you would fill out all of your registration information for Lindsays Law, for concussion, for the athletic waivers, as well as this meeting. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and we will post it shortly on the website, is the ticket policy for this fall. Obviously, social distancing is going to have an impact on what we're doing. So the ticket policy for the 2020 fall season is going to be different. Because of social distancing and the requirements by the Ohio Department of Health, as well as the Governor's Office, we have strict limits on seating capacities. Tickets will be sold pre-sale only in the athletic office during school hours. You will be limited to 2 tickets per student athlete for an away event. For home events, we are also going to have a 2-ticket limit for soccer and volleyball due to the sizes of those locations and our ability to safely have spectators. For football games, the student athletes, band members, and cheerleaders will be able to purchase 4 tickets for a home event. 2 for away, 4 for home for football, 2 for home for soccer and for volleyball. For volleyball, we're asking, the games will be 3 in a row. We will not play side by side. And we're asking parents to wear masks inside, to sit only on the X's that will be marked on the bleachers. And after the freshman game is over, we'd like the freshman parents and players to be able to leave the building so that as the JV game is played, we have more spectator capacity. When the JV game is over, we'd like the parents and the players to leave so that we have more capacity for the varsity game. There will be tickets for the JV football games and the freshman football games. We will hand those out to those players during the week. Those tickets will be no charge, but we still have to have a ticket for people coming in so that we can control the capacity of people coming to the events. So again, there will be no free admissions. There will only be admissions with tickets, and we have to keep those limits in place in order for it to work. One last thing about all of our events, masks will be worn. They have to be worn unless you're eating food from the concession stand. And you have to sit on the blue X's in the football stadium, in the soccer stadium, and in the gymnasium. For soccer and for middle school football, we will paint dots or X's on the ground so that you can bring lawn chairs and you can sit on an X or a dot, and that will keep you socially distanced. So we are encouraging all of our soccer parents, and for the middle school football games that will be played at the middle school, we're trying to do as many of them in the stadium as we can. Please bring a lawn chair or a blanket to put on the grass so we can take advantage of more areas and have more capacity of a crowd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dragas. We want to thank you for your wonderful leadership in these tenuous times, and I'm sure we're going to be able to meet the governor's guidelines in that for attendance and make everyone safe and healthy. So again, thank you, Mr. Dragas. All right, my next part of the program, first I'm going to talk about the pay to participate guidelines. Yes, there have been some changes. Perhaps you've seen them posted, etc. But due to our financial situation in the district, fees were increased this year for sports participation. So at the high school, their first sport went up from $125 is now $150. The second sport is also $150, and the third sport is $75. We do have, some of you do have that have worked bingo in the past. Those fees will be applied. There was bingo before the COVID shutdown back in January, February, and early March. If you happen to work those fees have been given to the athletic secretary, and she will apply them towards your fee in that. If there's any questions, please send me an email or contact my office, and I will help with that. Again, this is the first change since we implemented it back in 2014 and 15, so we've been very fortunate. A reminder that the fee does have to be paid before an athlete participates in their first contest of the regular season. So that's their first official contest, not a scrimmage. And most teams do begin opening up as soon as August 21st, this Friday, and most teams will open up next week with the first football game scheduled next Friday, August 28th. All fees from previous seasons must be cleared as well before a student can participate in the sport. So your fees that you owe school-wise do have to be taken care of and cleared by then. I will have Mr. Brady in a few minutes address the fees that will be for the middle school when he comes up to talk. Now I'd like to move into just a couple eligibility guidelines. And again, this is more a refresher. All of you have been through these meetings in past years, whether you were at the middle school or high school. The exception being a 7th grader, this is your first year. Those eligibility guidelines Mr. Brady will briefly touch upon. But we always stress to the high school student athlete, it's your responsibility for compliance. It's your responsibility either talking to your coach, myself, our counselors, the athletic director again, to find out what the rules and regulations are. You can always go on to the OHSAA website, and they have a number of sections that you can click on and find out answers to your questions. And eligibility requirements, not only that we talk about grades, which I'm going to cover here shortly, but that includes, if you move in the district, eligibility rules in terms of that, playing in sports outside of your school competition. There are guidelines, although those have been waived this past summer due to the COVID, but again, keep yourself familiar, and if you have questions, see us about that. The next slide, I will talk about eligibility. This is an exception, but it will apply later in the year. All students, the OHSAA waivered due to the COVID conditions last spring. All 9th graders, and Mr. Brady will address the middle school students, but all 9th graders are eligible at the beginning of the school year. So regardless of what your grades were last spring, you had a free pass to start this year and you are eligible. But those grades will have to be established during the quarter and will then be applied for the second quarter. So if you're worried or haven't asked, you are okay starting out this year. So with eligibility, I always share in our meetings, as you know, in past years, there's a 2-prong test. And essentially it works. First, the student has to have passed 2.5 credits from the prior quarter. So in this case, fall football, using you as an example, that was waived from last spring. But if you're going to play a winter sport, or when we get in the playoffs at the end of first quarter into the second quarter, which is in mid-October, and we're still playing football, then you will have had to pass 2.5 credits, which is 2 blocks, and a singleton, as you'll see in the note there, as a minimum, and that doesn't count PE, since that isn't a full half credit. But you will have to have that passed when we move into the second quarter in the middle of October, early October. The one that does apply now that you don't get a waiver on is you do have to carry 2.5 credits during this quarter. So once your schedules are released here this upcoming weekend on August 23rd, actually Sunday, you will be able to see your schedules. You will have a week a waiver in terms of a week, 1 week period to get schedules corrected. Our athletic secretary, Mr. Dragas, will be checking all the athletes' rosters that are given to us. If you're not carrying enough quarters or carrying enough credits, 2.5 credits, please see me, see Mr. Dragas, or see your counselor. We'll make sure that we get you scheduled into a class. But do not panic. We have a week to get that in place by the first day of school, August 28th, after the welcome days, etc. Also, if you're College Credit Plus, that also applies to you. If you're attending one of the local schools, either Lakeland, Lake Erie College, or Ashtabula, Kent State, those also apply to you. So if you, all college courses count as 1 credit equivalent to the high school when you're determining if you're carrying enough courses. Again, when we move into the second quarter, although it actually will apply to you more in the winter, and we'll have a meeting for the winter athletes if you do not hear this now. But remember, it is quarter grades. So at the end of the semester, or your course for the grade does not affect eligibility. It's by the quarters, first quarter, second quarter, etc. One thing I have highlighted in red there that I want to stress, if you do make a schedule change, and that will be limited this year, but if you drop a course, or if you change your schedule through your counselor, it's critically important that you check with myself or Mr. Dragas, make sure that you are carrying enough credits. We will try to catch that and double check it, but again, it is your responsibility to make sure. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brady for the MMS guidelines.
Hello, Madison Middle School parents and athletes. Today I'm here to talk to you about the OHSAA 2020 guidelines and what Madison Middle School is going to be doing. I'm going to start off with eligibility. Eligibility at the middle school, as Mr. Fisher alluded to at the high school, everybody is eligible for fall sports. We have volleyball, football, cross country, and cheerleading. All students are eligible this year because of the COVID pandemic. Everybody is automatically eligible. After the first 9 weeks, eligibility, all student athletes must be passing 5 credits, 5 classes of middle school classes to actually be eligible. So starting after the first 9 weeks, you must pass all your classes to be eligible for winter and spring sports. Next thing I'm going to talk about is pay to participate fees. Our pay to participate fees did increase just like the high schools. We are up to $100 for our first sport, $100 for our second sport, $75 for our third sport, and free fourth sport pay to participate fees. Those fees are going to be due prior to the first event of your sport, so please get those turned in as quickly as possible. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the social distancing policy that the district has. We are going to be following the same guidelines as the high school as set forth by the governor and the OHSAA. So what that means to our student athletes and our parents for volleyball, cross country, and football in the fall, we will be limited to the number of spectators we have for each event. Tickets will be given to those athletes for football and volleyball. There will be 2 tickets issued to per student per event for seating purposes in our gyms for home and away events. For our cross country, there will be no tickets issued, but we are urging you to, if you are going to watch cross country meets, whether it's here at Madison or visiting our other schools, you need to social distance and wear a mask and try and limit the number of people you take to 2. Volleyball students will be getting 2 tickets per event. Again, 2 people max for volleyball to keep the number of participant or audience down to a minimum. Football, we're going to, as Mr. Dragas had said, we are going to try to use the stadium for most of our games. We do have 2 football games on our middle school field. Again, we're going to ask you 2 people to watch the games per athlete and to keep socially distanced. At all of our events, volleyball, cross country, and football, we are requiring you to wear masks at our events. cross country, if you are going to watch our cross country meets, if you are out on the course and with family members only, you can take the masks off. But if you are by the start-finish lines or congregating amongst other observers, you must wear a mask and practice social distancing. Same with football and volleyball in the stadiums and at our Madison Middle School fields. But please wear masks and bring masks to all events at Madison Middle School. I'm looking forward to this season. I'm super excited that we're actually going to be playing sports in the fall. So if we want to keep this going and we want to keep playing athletics in the fall at the middle school, we need to practice social distancing and wear masks. And all this applies to cheerleaders as well. They will be getting tickets for football games in the fall as well. So have a great year, and I look forward to seeing all of you and your student athletes perform this year.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. We appreciate your words of wisdom there. Just to finish up now, I just have a couple more slides. Just a reminder, there is a limit on your number of semesters of eligibility, and that is 8 semesters. So once you start your freshman year, you have 8 consecutive semesters. Again, the 7th, 8th grade students are eligible for 4 semesters. So once they enroll as a 7th grader, they have 4 consecutive semesters. There are age limits once you turn 20 at high school. If it's during your senior year, that day you turn 20, then you become ineligible to participate. And 7th and 8th grade students, again, if they turn 15 before August 1st, their eligibility then is used up at the middle school. One thing I want to point out about transfer student, if you are new to our school and you're viewing this, whether you're in a fall sport or any sport, please make sure you contact Mr. Dragas. New students must be approved by the OHSAA. So if you were at a different school district last year, please make sure you contact him, that he takes care of getting your eligibility approved. A reminder of physical examinations, and most of you have had them, or you might need to still get one. They're good for 13 months. So for example, last year, August 1st, you had a physical and you've carried it over through this August, September, you will be required to get a new physical. And lastly, I just want to quickly mention the most important topic your coaches will have talked to you about, heat issues in terms of the heat and being careful, et cetera, and water, making sure you take enough water during practice. But the one thing that the OHSAA has really stressed these past couple of years has been concussions. And concussions aren't just a problem in football. You receive a concussion through any type of injury, but it's extremely important that you do not push yourself, come to school, participate when you have a brain injury. The coaches know and have been trained and have viewed videos that if you do, or if the trainer assesses that you have a concussion, that you are taken out of the practice or the contest, and you have to be cleared through written authorization from a physician or healthcare provider. And there's some baseline protocol that you'll have to go through in order to participate again. Most important, I stress this each year at the meeting, we do have a return to learn policy, or a protocol, I should say, not policy, a protocol. And it's the same as return to play. So when you go through a return to play protocol, that's just to become eligible after a concussion to start to participate in that sport. But we also do it with learning. We do not want you to come to school. So if you're medically diagnosed, you're in a soccer game, you get hit real hard, you develop a headache, your parents take you to an emergency room that night, they say you've suffered a concussion, do not come to school the next day. We understand you might be worried about a test, or you might have class work in that. It will all be excused. We do have the information in the student planner. Please notify Mrs. Albert in the attendance office, and we will monitor, working with the parent, the guidance counselor, and your teachers, getting you back to in the classroom again, and taking care of makeup work, etc. So again, please please be conscious it's just as important about your schoolwork if you suffer concussion as it is if you're playing in a contest or a game. Finally, Evan Hasselmeyer is again our athletic trainer, and most of the kids have met him through practices or through the coaches. And following this, once you've finished viewing this, just a reminder, please view the video on Lindsays Law, sudden cardiac arrest video. Just recently, I've seen some presentations as well as features on the news talking about sudden cardiac arrest and the impact COVID has had on it. So it is very important that you're aware of these situations, and hopefully it will never happen to our students in that. So this does conclude my part of the presentation. And again, good luck with your season. We wish everyone the best of luck, and have a great year, everybody. Thank you.